What's going on, guys? Today we are going to do a video about the 5 knives that bring me happiness within my collection. These not necessarily the knives I carry the most, although some of them are. And they're just knives that kind of mean a little something more to me, not in a sentimental way other than self-induced, right? So we're going to talk about the 5 knives today that make me happy. Alright guys, so the 5 knives today that make me happy. I would say these are in no particular order, but I'm going to try to order them as we go. Second of all, I know there's a light spot here. I may try to kind of dull this material. Clearly, I have changed my background setup. In everyday EDC's constant just search for quality improvement, or CQI, if you will, I'm trying to update the background. I know that background was outdated. I think this background does look better. This is some extra flooring that I had in the garage that ended up in my cardboard box that is filled with sheets, printer paper, and a bunch of lights to try and knock down, but give enough light. So it's kind of a unique situation here because we're trying to give more light without reflecting more light. I think this is turning out pretty good. You can see pretty well, but I do have to get rid of some of the little light there. Deal with that for a while. I'll figure out how to do that. This flooring isn't real hardwood. This is like that Pergo style flooring, so I gotta like sand it down and take some of the gloss finish off. All right, so let's get into it with the 5 knives that make me happy. Now I'm gonna try to do this in order, but it may, it's an off the cuff in order. First and foremost, I also tried to get example from each and every kind of genre of knife. Not necessarily genre, but more or less like different brands. But I do have 2 of the same brand in here, and I'll kind of go over why. They're a little different. But first and foremost, the Spyderco Smock. This one in particular, an M4. Now, I can honestly say there's a lot of Spydercos that do it for me, right? You got the Spyderco Shaman, you got the PM2, you got the PM3, and they're just so customizable. They're fun. In fact, I have some scales on the way for this guy. But what makes it even more fun is that you have something that feels like it's exclusive, right? You have this M4 DLC coated smock blade, and it's the old school DLC, so it's all nice and shiny and everything. It just looks really cool. Now, the smock is a unique knife. When I had the PM2, the Shaman, and the smock originally, which is funny because I sold all 3 of those and I ended up with 3 of the same knives. So you can kind of see where you gravitate towards. One special mention, or honorable mention, that I did not include on the list is the Benchmade bug out. Now, I've always been opposed to the Benchmade bug out, but here's the thing with the Benchmade bug out. The reason it's an honorable mention is that this was the very first knife that I purchased that got me into knives. And then I've gone through like 5 or 6 that I've traded, sold. Well, this one I ended up having to modify the tip because the tip was broken off that I got in a trade. I knew about it. It wasn't like a shady thing or anything. But I took it to a belt grinder and I kind of tried to crown the spine just a little bit, and I'd knocked down the... You really can't tell unless it's right up next to another bug out. So I was happy with that work. The reason that this is an honorable mention is because I bought it or traded for it like 4 times. I always want to fight the idea that I like it, but I have some Flytanium scales in the way. I'm going to do a comparison with the Mini Freak, and then I'm probably gonna trade the Mini Freak and keep the bug out, just depending on how those scales go, but that's where I'm leaning. It's just such a good knife, but buying it 4 times, you really can't get away from that. Next, Spyderco Smock. This is number 5 on the list. The reason that this is on here, like I said, there's so many customizable options. The M4 blade, it really leads to something that you enjoy having. I take pride in ownership of this guy because this guy was not easy to get, nor did I really have the funds to get it at the time. Actually, I did a layaway program at the time just because I didn't want to spread myself too thin. But, with these drops, it's weird because you never know when they're going to come, and then bam, they're here, and you're like, crap, I need money. So this one took a little bit more work to get. A. B, when I had the PM2, the Shaman, and the Smock back in the day, I'm not going to lie, guys, I always reach for the smock. Now, the smock has a ton of inherent problems in it, right? There's a ton of things that I don't like. I don't like the way that finger choil is done, and in fact, on my first smock, I made that finger choil into a real finger choil. I'm not going to do that with this one because that's the downside to DLC-coated blades. If you do that, you're going to get into metal, and it's going to shine, and it's going to be like, what the hell? It's going to look like a rough job, and I'm not good enough to do that. So there's one problem I have with it, but the other problem is that the tip is so dainty. Like, I was going to pop a zip tie one time, and I'm sitting there trying to get underneath it. It was one of those tight ones, and I thought I was going to break this tip square off, so I just stopped. Which leads me into my next knife, which we'll get into in a second. But overall, this is just a super fun knife. I thoroughly enjoy everything about this. And those of you that take the second detent out, which I did on the first one, there's a detent in there, and you guys can see this thing's kind of free floating in there anyways. I don't really see a reason to take that second detent out. Plus, I like the detent strength it provides upon opening and closing, which when you take it out, you do not have. All in all, it's a great knife. It's a great carry. It's fun and super functional. So the smock holds a near and dear place in my heart, and I think I've gone through, this might be my third smock. Maybe it's my second. But this is a knife that I bought twice or 3 times. So nice, I bought it twice. So number 5 is the Spyderco smock. Number 4 on this list. This one holds sentimental value. This is my Kershaw Launch 10. So this one in particular, I got for a Christmas present. I'm like, oh, cool, and I'm into these big knives, right? I like the hinderers, I like the shamans, I like the wee malice, you know. And then I get this for Christmas, and I'm like, awesome. And I don't want to sound like a dick, you know, but I was like, oh, cool, you know, because I wasn't into small knives at the time. Still wouldn't call myself into small knives, but I'm like, all right, so let's give it a try. It's obviously not going to get traded. There's nothing else that I'm going to do with this, so let's just use it, right? Guys, this hawkbill shape, I talk about it all the time, leads to such an, like, this thing is so good that you can knock out literally 90% of your daily tasks for a normal person with this knife. When I talked about zip ties, the coolest thing about this, you go, and it pops the zip tie clear off. Like, it's just so functional. And then even to open up packages, this is so much nicer to go like this and drag versus, you know, a slicing motion or like a tip motion. So the Kershaw Launch 10 is just, short of the fact that I got it for a gift, it's a really, really good knife. And I think that I really don't like this blade shape on anything else, nor do I think I ever will. I think this is the perfect size for a hawkbill blade shape. If this was any bigger, it would annoy the crap out of me, but because it's like this, you can control that tip so much. That was my kind of complaint with the Yojimbo, is that when I was using it, it was a fantastic knife, but real thick, right? It's a real thick boy, like in the spine, so it's not the greatest of slicers if you're slicing through a large piece of material. And then the tip work was fantastic, but to get into the position, because it's so large, the Warncliffe on it is like this. So you really, it's not like it's hard, and we're kind of comparing, you know, it's being a little facetious at this point, but, you know, to get up towards that tip, it's not as easy, and this one just lends to such a good, easy cutting experience. The only downside is that it is a recurve, which lends to its capabilities, but you need to get something special to sharpen it. A ceramic rod would be fine. I bought the Spyderco Sharpmaker and then a ceramic rod, and they both work just fine. This is probably, realistically, my most used knife in my box as it stands today. Not most carried. We're going to say most used. There's a difference, right? All right, so number 3 on my list is the Wee Esprit. You're like, God, come on. You have 2 of these brand new knives on there. It's the honeymoon phase. No. The Spyderco Smock and the Wee Esprit are not a honeymoon phase. The Smock, I already know, right? You just know. But the Wee Esprit, when I got it out of the box, I just knew. Why? Because I've held some of other Ray Laconico designs, mainly the Kaiser Gemini that I kind of compare this to, and oh my goodness, is this such an EDC dream. If I had to get rid of everything in my collection and pick like 3 knives to carry for the rest of my life, I haven't gone through the actual thought process, but I would almost guarantee this is going to be on the top of the list. It carries so well, it's so ergonomic, it's just enough blade, probably more than you actually need on a daily basis. It's fun, it's fidgety, you can reverse flick it even though I just failed. Titanium frame lock with this orange peel texturing on here. And it is just, I can't stress enough how perfect of a knife this is. If I had one thing that I could want in this, is that this pocket, or this front flipper, I wish they would have just chopped that off somehow. And it would have changed the design, keep in mind, because this front flipper, I already looked at it. It engages the stop pin very shortly after the front flipper. So it's really engaging. You can actually see the mark right there. That's where it engages the stop pin. So there's really no way to whittle down that thumb flipper, but that's just a want. It affects nothing with the knife. It does add for a separate opening method, so that's cool. It just kind of a little bit mars the aesthetic for me. But Ray Laconico's designs are, honestly, if I had to pick a favorite designer, not favorite as in aesthetics or favorite, because he's not flashy, right? But once you get it in hand, Ray Laconico's designs just feel amazing. The Kaiser Gemini was just incredible. Over here we have the Artisan Cutlery Centauri, which, you know, this is a small Centauri, but I mean, even this ergonomically is relatively neutral, kind of like that Launch 10. You got a lot of tip work that you can do, and it's just, he's got to be my favorite functional designer I think exists for EDC on a daily basis, right? So this is the Ray Laconico Esprit. Absolutely, absolutely, hands down, one of my favorite knives, and knives that just make me the most happiest. Most happy. And these next two are a toss-up. So these next two, my 1 and 2, are in no particular order. And even the Malice, which I've just given away, my wee Malice is, once I got the Esprit in hand, I was like, damn, dude, like this, the wee Malice may not be as carried as much as my Esprit now. I enjoy the Esprit more than the Malice at times, but they're two different things. I've realized that they're two different things. The wee Malice is an ergonomic dream. And it's a tank. This thing is just so robust. It's so beefy. The action is so good, and Ferrum Forged designs are just so cool, and they fit and work so well. The wee Malice, I chased, guys. This was the first grail. I had a holy trinity of knives, right? I had my Benchmade Freak, or Super Freak, if you will. I desperately wanted that. The Spyderco Shaman, I desperately wanted that. But then the coup de grace of my holy trinity was the wee Malice, which was much harder to get than those other two, right? At the time. And this was before COVID and Shamans went out of stock and all this other stuff, right? But oh my lord, I even lost $200 because I was an idiot. I talked about this in another video on Reddit, and I screwed up. That's why I talk about, you know, be careful, and I talk about my experiences because I screwed up. I gave somebody $200 and they just ran off with it. It was crazy. So the wee Malice is, in my opinion, like one of my favorite knives that just make me happy. I've chased for it. Everything, and then once you got it, it did not disappoint. It is just such a beast of a knife. I broke off the tip, and yeah, I probably did a really bad job of repairing that tip. Maybe one day we'll go back and redo it. Using my Veneve stones that I enjoy so much. Those are another thing that make me really happy, is my Veneve stones. And those straps that Jake sent me. Those things make me really happy as far as sharpening supplies. Those are awesome. But the wee Malice is just gorgeous, and it's just probably one of my favorite ergonomics. And this is a knife that, despite being the only knife as of recent that I've actually snapped the tip off of, which is a little ironic, right? Because it's so robust, it's such a tank. The circumstances were kind of dumb. It just, you feel so capable with this in your hands, guys. The wee Malice means a lot to me. I don't think this thing will ever leave my collection. It may not get carried as much as it used to, but this holds a lot of value to me. This was my first big chase, first unhappiness, first stolen money in the community with Reddit and stuff. Not to scare you from Reddit. I was stupid, not the forums. I was dumb. And it's just really, really good. Last, and maybe, you know, maybe as good as the Malice, maybe better, I don't know, is the knife that I just failed to open. My Hinderer XM18 skinny sheep's foot. So this knife, I can't help but accredit this to Slicey Dicey and Metal Complex, because they were the first two guys I've ever started watching before I knew there was a community of knife people, right? I had no idea there was like all of us crazy people that collected all this shit. I was like, Jesus, there's so many knives. Oh my God, there's like a community. There's dudes that are like, I was just watching Lefty's live stream the other day, and he's got all these dudes on there. They're talking about making a compound where a bunch of dudes live that just get together and talk knives. Like, that's how obsessed with knives we are, and it's so cool that that's a thing, right? I mean, that's a little extreme, but it is what it is. And so, but when I was watching Metal Complex and Slicey, all they talked about is how hinderers are the best. They're the bomb. You can't really get any better than hinderer. Well, I got a hinderer XM18 3-inch in hand that was a total user. It was a Gen 4. It was really nice. I enjoyed every aspect of it. I think my favorite part was the way that the lock bar was so light, and even on these, the lock bar is light. But it just feels like there was so much going on, you know? This one feels like there's less going on, but we'll get into that in a second. And it was really cool. I appreciated it for what it was, but it didn't make me happy. It made me happy that it was my first hinderer that I ever felt, but it didn't make me happy in the sense of, like, this knife makes me happy. So I don't remember if I bought this brand new or if they just dropped and somebody flipped it on Reddit. I think I still got it for relatively cheap. I think the dude I think I got it on Reddit, and the dude didn't like the skinny sheep's foot, so he got it to me. So I picked this up it was like $415, which is a pretty good deal, right? For a brand new hinderer, if you will. And as you can tell, like I've HRC tested the blade. No, I don't take my blades out to do that most of the time unless I know I'm gonna trade it. This is a forever knife, so I don't care. You guys can make fun of that, but this isn't leaving my collection. This is one that I know as 100% fact will never leave my collection. I have another hinderer XM18 that I've put new scales on. It's kind of like, I don't want to call it a safe queen, but it's cool, right? I got a regular size to really just compare against the skinny, and I wasn't sure if I was going to keep them both or what. I'll tell you this, if I go through like a purging of my inventory, that hinderer with those $300 scales and the freaking $420 that the knife was, I'm getting rid of before I get rid of this. That has a little bit more going on, but I've already put titanium hardware. I got a Sharp Eye Designs carbon fiber thing going on there, carbon fiber scale. I got a new pocket clip, which I just tried. I got it, and I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. I was probably going to send it back, but I got it just to try it, right? Or I wasn't going to send it back. I was going to keep it or sell it on Reddit. But then I put it on, and I still didn't like the aesthetic as much, but then I put it in hand, and I'm like, holy crap, that pocket clip disappears. Like, you don't feel it at all. This knife, you guys can even tell, I removed the flipper. I've done so much to this. Replaced the pivot, replaced the cover plate, replaced all this hardware, replaced the back spacers, and this is my knife now. I have made this knife effectively my knife by making all these modifications to it, tagging it with the dots of, I think this came in at 60.5 HRC, and oh gosh, this thing just makes you so happy. Hinderers, when you first get into the whole genre of knives, and even if you fall in love with the hinderer, most of you are like me. Well, I can't say that, but most of you are like, $20 for a knife was a lot for you before you got into the hobby, right? And then $50. Oh God, I just bought a Civivi shredder. Oh man, I spent $70 on this thing. This thing better be awesome. Like, that's how your mind works. That's how you go through all this. That's exactly what I did. Actually, that's an example of a specific situation. I bought the shredder. It was my first Civivi knife, and I'm like, this thing better be freaking good. This was $60. It looks good, but oh man. Then you get it in hand, and you're like, yes. Yes, this makes so much sense. I'm so glad I spent this. I'm so glad that I got this. I don't even worry about the money right now. I don't even think about how much I spent on it. And then 2 weeks later, you're on the hunt for another knife. So I bought a couple more Civivis. I ended up going through the whole CJRB Civivi lineup in my early reviewing stages. And, you know, I might have been premature on the reviews because I was premature in the knife world. But it kind of kickstarted. Anything I do, I jump in head first and just figure it out along the way. And that's kind of what I did. So you go through Civivi, you go through CJRB, I flipped those knives. I ended up doing like a giveaway for like 7 CJRB knives at one point in time in the beginning. And I was just going through these knives. It wasn't about making money, it was about just enjoying the knives. And that's what it's still about. But then it led you to, well, Spyderco's out there, right? All right, all right, all right. So I got my Mannix too. Whoa, ergonomics, are you kidding? Wow, wow, you know, and then you spent $120 in the G10 model because I'm totally against lightweight models mentally. There's no reason for it otherwise. And you just build up in this process, you know, you chase the malice, you chase the shaman, you chase the super freak, you chase all these knives. You're on Reddit, you see knives that you never knew existed, but in the back of your mind, there's still the hinderer that you've never felt. Well, when I felt this, I'm like, this, I am going to love you so hard. I'm going to use you so hard whenever I have to. And I am not going to feel bad because I promise I'll take care of you. That's how I feel about this. I am not scared to use this guy. I'm not scared to take a Dremel and knock off the pocket, you know, the pocket or the flipper tab. This knife is mine. I have made it mine. And it makes me happy that it's mine. The chase made me happy. The money being spent, you're kind of like, that one hurts a little bit. But overall, this is the knife that makes me the most happy. Once again, like the Malice, it may not be the most carried. I will never baby this knife, but I will always cherish it. These are the top 5 knives that have made me happy in my hunt for... we don't even know what we're hunting for, let's be honest. You know, we hunt for these knives, but as soon as you get them, you know, we're a product of our generation and the marketing that we want the next best knife. We want the next thing, and we're always going to chase that next thing. So don't ever fool yourself. The fear of missing out sucks. But the reality here is, while the fear of missing out sucks, there will always be another one. You always hear it and you get tired of hearing it. But some knives, let's pull out, what's a good one? I don't know if I have. All right, so here's a good one. This knife, the Wee Thug, this makes me happy. I love this knife. But while I thought that was going to be like an end-all be-all knife, let's see, do I have maybe it's in my pants. One second. I'm going somewhere with this, right? So just relax. Hold on. Relax. Don't move it. What did I do with that? Okay, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought because I thought I lost this thing. So, yesterday I carried the Tashi Baracha Designs Krypton, the small Krypton in particular. So I usually carry my Wee Thug as a 5th pocket knife, right? Sometimes I will carry my Wee Malice, my Wee Roxy as a 5th pocket knife. The Wee Malice would be a large 5th pocket knife. Yesterday I carried the small Krypton. Now, when I first got this knife, I did not think that I liked it. There was something about it that I was like, you know, I like it, but it's not my design. The blade's a little bit too short, blah, 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 blah. What I'm getting at here is my Wee Thug and Wee Roxy may be beaten out. And it's because I thought this was broke, okay? I thought this was broke. It's got this weird flipper tab. So when it's open, the flipper tab disappears. But when it's closed, the flipper tab's here. But then I like half opened it and I didn't realize. And I was doing this, and I hate hearing loose parts, right? Something loose drove me nuts, and I didn't know anything about this knife. I got it in a raffle, kind of got it in the box, and it sat in my box. So carrying it yesterday, I'm like playing with it, and then I hear, what the hell? So I start investigating, then I find this. Now, that doesn't really do anything for performance, other than the flipper tab is now gone, and I can get, on this small knife, 4 fingers with then some room, and it's just super comfortable. It's so good, and it feels so good in hand. So what I'm getting at is that Wee Thug, that Wee Roxy were like knives that I'm like, yo, I gotta have these. I got them. And then I happened upon this Tashi Baracha design, and I weirdly fell in love with it last night. I was carrying it, and I'm like, dude, this thing is awesome. Learned how to reverse flick it. Like, it feels like an integral, but it's not about any of those knives. What I'm saying is there's always going to be another knife. There's always going to be one that makes you just as happy. You just don't know it. So don't go and, freak out if you don't get what you're looking for. Be happy with what you have. Yes, I have a really nice collection, and I justified it by starting a YouTube channel, which is the whole reason the YouTube channel started in the first place. I want all these knives. I need to have a reason to have them. Enjoy your knives. Be happy with what you have. My name is Tyler. This has been Everyday EDC. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great freaking day. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. This is my Patreon. This is my Instagram, everydayedc_77. I'm going to do a special shout out to all the Patreons: John K, Sammy, Eggs and Ham, Jason M, Dogtooth, Kaiba, Mickey, Wolf, and Captain Steve. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great freaking day.